I want to talk to you about how to start a food truck business this year. So here's a prologue I want you to pay attention to. The thing is that the food truck business is growing like crazy. Okay, I mean when you think about even during COVID and people were home, but if you are able to drive from town to town, from county to county, or city to city, you could be making a lot of cash. I mean, as a matter of fact, the industry grew by 16 to 32% year over year during COVID, and for the last 5 to 10 years, the industry has been growing like 30%. So folks love to eat, and folks love the convenience that comes with a food truck cost. Okay, I mean with a food truck. Now I want to talk to you about a food truck cost because when you think about a food truck business, it's really important to pay attention to cash inflows as well as cash outflows. So how much does a food truck really cost? Well, the cost of buying or renting a food truck depends on several factors, including location and what features you want to add on, right? So we're speaking about what geography. We're speaking about the kind of model, the kind of vehicle you want, and the kind of features you want incorporated in the food truck. So let's talk about new, used, and rental. So one thing I want to say here is that when we think about a new truck, a new truck with a kitchen can range between $75,000 to $200,000. So wrapping, high-end kitchen equipment, and other custom alterations can actually drive up the cost. So it really depends on what you want in the end, right? And this is the priciest option, and it can take months for it to be ready. But because it is new, you may run into fewer maintenance issues. So for the new, 75 grand to 200 grand. What about the used? Well, you can buy a used food truck for about 50 grand to $100,000. And you can also start with a used truck like a chassis and add a new kitchen for about $85,000 to 115 grand. Both options may come with some mechanical issues, but you should actually still be able to start using your truck without much delay. I mean, if you want things a lot fast, go with a used option. What about rental? Well, renting a food truck can be a more cost-effective option since you don't have to spend as much money upfront, and you can rent a food truck for about $2,000 to $3,000 a month if you commit to a 6-month lease. And shorter leases are typically more expensive, and this is actually a good option if you want to test whether your food truck concept works without a large initial investments, right? It's all about testing the waters first to see if things will work for you. So that's really fantastic in terms of scalability also. Now, I want to break it down. When I speak about cost, we really have to have a clear idea about because you have the vehicle of the food truck business, the vehicle cost, but you also have what we call ancillary cost, ancillary expenses. Okay, let's first talk about food truck startup cost. So you have permits and licenses, kitchen equipment, generator. You also have to think about the initial inventory, right? Because you have to sell food to your customers. So when we speak about food truck startups in general, food trucks have similar startup costs as other businesses in the restaurant industry, with the cost fluctuating based on where you decide to start a food truck business. So again, geography plays an important role. Not counting the truck itself, startup costs include the following: permits and licenses. So working in the regulated food industry means what? Means you need to acquire the proper food truck permits and licenses. And according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, permits and licenses can range from just under $1,000 to tens of thousands of dollars, especially if you are in a very pricey neighborhood. So this figure changes from one city to the next. Okay, for example, a food truck operator will pay $590 in Minneapolis to $2,439 in Los Angeles, and $17,000 in Boston. $17,000. Okay. What about the kitchen equipment? When you think about the kitchen equipment, your food truck equipment cost might just include tools such as knives, cutting boards, pots and pans, food processors, blenders, and storage containers. If you're just buying a used food truck, you also need to replace or upgrade ovens, microwaves, and food prep surfaces to start serving customers. And this cost can range from just about $25,000 to $100,000 based on your needs and the condition of the used truck. But it also depends on the demographics that you are going after, right? Your target audience. What about a generator? Well, a generator can power your food truck. The size, features, and how much power it generates will affect the cost, which can range from $500 to $3,000. You also got to think about the initial inventory. So initial inventory includes ingredients and serveware products like napkins, plates, and utensils. And this will largely depend on the kind of food you are serving, but budgeting a few $1,000s for initial inventory can be a good starting point in our view. So that's really an important element to think about. Now let's really go a little deeper in terms of food truck operational cost. Okay, so when we speak about operational cost, we are speaking about a variety of costs. So you have a regulatory operating cost, you have POS system, you have staff, you have maintenance, you have fuel, marketing, insurance, storage, and parking, and you have the food itself. So let's talk about the regulatory operational cost. As I said a little earlier, you have to really understand that those costs actually are not the startup cost, but those are annual costs. Okay, so those annual expenses, which include insurance, taxes, and permits, keep food trucks legally compliant, and the cost differ across cities. So Portland, Oregon comes in at the lowest at about $5,000, and Boston is the highest at $37,900. I mean, close to 40 grand. So you can see that having a food truck in New England is not really a cheap affair. So what about the POS system? A point of sale system can have a fixed or a monthly expense. It can cost up to $2,000 to install the hardware or software. And for a software-based system, you might pay an additional $500 to $1,000 a year in subscription fees. And POS systems also charge a flat fee or a percentage of sales to process payments. So you have to ask yourself which one do you want to go for. And you have a lot of POS systems, though. By the way, you have Shopify, you have Square, you have Stripe, you have a lot of, and the cool thing is you have POS systems that are actually for the restaurant industry. So that's kind of cool. But Shopify POS is one of the easiest ways to start selling import in person. You can take your brand on the road and accept payments, manage inventory and payouts, and sell everywhere your customers are. Farmers markets, pop-up events, and meetups, craft fairs, and anywhere in between. Let's talk about the staff cost. So because of a food truck's small space, you likely will have a smaller staff compared to a restaurant. So according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, last year, the median pay for food and beverage serving and related workers was about 30 grand per year, or about $15 per hour. So cooks earn 34 to 40 grand per year, or just about $16 to $18 per hour. So something to really know. Let's talk about maintenance here. So we are still having a conversation about food truck operational cost. And when you think about maintenance, now the thing is that maintenance costs really depend on a lot of factors, right? And also it depends also on the timing. So chronology plays an important role. I mean, if you are at a festival, if you have a food truck at a festival, and you go regularly to festivals, maintenance costs will go up. So maintenance costs are harder to factor in because the state of your truck will dictate what you need. If you have a new truck, you will have less maintenance costs than if you had a used food truck. So putting money aside in case of an emergency can keep you prepared if the engine gives out, or you need to replace the tires. And this happens all the time. What about fuel? Well, this cost, which ensures gas or propane, can actually vary from month to month depending on fuel prices, but also it depends on the vehicle model that you are driving. Okay, so unless you have an all-electric food truck, this is a necessary expense to power your equipment and drive your truck from place to place. You also have to account for marketing. So your marketing budget hinges on your goals, what sort of professionals you hire, and whether you hire, let's say, a full-time or part-time in-house staff member or a contractor. I mean, simply because you have a food truck doesn't mean that you don't need marketing. We know a lot of food truck business owners who actually have a full suite of marketing operations internally. And for example, advertising, promotions, and marketing managers earn about 75 to $100 an hour in like last year, according to the BLS, and public relations specialists earn about 32 to $45 per hour, again per BLS data. So that's that gives you an idea if you were to outsource your food truck business marketing to a third party, to an agency, for instance, and actually so you can run your business actually seamlessly. So when we talk about starting a food truck business, there are other costs that you need to really account for. You need to think about insurance. You need to think about storage and parking, and you also need to think about food, the food itself, right? The raw material. So insurance. Now, since not all food trucks are the same, their insurance needs will differ. However, insurance typically will include coverage for the vehicle and a business owner's policy, which really includes the medical payments and bodily injury liability. There are also specialty insurance options that can cover spoiled food or damage to cooking equipment in the case of a power outage. And for general liability and commercial auto insurance, a food truck operator will on average pay around $2,500 to $4,500 a year. Now, your geography, your location, your city, your state, your county will also impact the cost of insurance that you pay in the end. So be very careful there. What about storage and parking? Well, parking your food truck is another expense to take into consideration. Your location will determine how much you will spend every month. In California, for example, you must park your food truck at a designated food facility when it is not in use, and a facility in LA might offer parking for a few $100s per month, plus an additional few $100s for freezer space and other food storage if required. So those are really ancillary expenses that you need to really account for, especially if you are thinking about the long term. What about the food itself? Now, food costs vary, but profitable restaurants usually spend anywhere from 28% to 40% of their revenue on this expense. So that's actually the raw materials. Okay, remember that, 28% to 40%. And this type of establishment, whether it's an ice cream truck or a fast casual restaurant, and the variety of ingredients you need will affect this number. Again, we're speaking about the food cost. So let me give you a few bonus tips here. So I want to share with you a few tips for cutting down food truck costs. And so you want to actually the first thing you want to do is you want to buy gently used equipment. So when we speak about buying used equipment, not like used, but gently used. So new food equipment can be costly, so you want to look for gently used tools that come at a lower price point. You will not have to replace as quickly. And you want to take good care of your truck. So repairs can add up, that's for sure. But taking care of your truck with the regular maintenance and safe driving habits can actually help you catch issues before they become a serious problem. And that's kind of cool because you are actually managing your cash inflows and cash outflows in a proper manner, and that will help you actually last in this industry a long time. You also want to plan your menu carefully. So buying seasonal produce or finding uses for food scraps like making stock out of carrot peels and potato skins can help you save money. And so by planning your menu strategically, you can actually ensure that you are being thoughtful about what you buy and how you use it. Now, of course, when we speak about what you buy, you have to really think about the ultimate recipient, right? Your customers. And your customers' states can vary. That's why you have to really do an in-depth research around your customers' states, your customers' preferences, and also the chronology. In other words, the timing. Like if you are in summer, for instance, your customers are not going to like the same thing that they're not going to buy the same foods that they would buy, let's say during winter, right? So you have to really understand what really works for your customers and what their appetites actually is like. You also need to find the most efficient routes. So stopping and starting your truck over and over again can actually expand more fuel. And so find the most efficient routes and the best times to travel to use less gas. So again, we're speaking here about chronology. We're speaking about doing things in a strategic manner, and that's kind of cool. So the thing is that when you think about, I mean, this is actually the recap of today's conversation. So when you actually are thinking about starting a food truck business, of course you have to think about cost, but you also have to think about revenue. Revenue in the sense that you have to think about marketing strategy. How do you attract new clients? How do you solidify the relationship you want to have with your clients, with your customers, and what kind of like what is your USP, your unique selling point, right? So of course everybody can sell food, but what are you bringing to the table that's actually different from other food truck operators? And when we speak about cost, you have to really remember, as I said a little earlier, you have a startup cost and you have an ongoing cost. So when we speak about startup costs, what are we speaking about? We are speaking about permits and licenses, kitchen equipment, a generator, and also initial inventory. So, and again, the cost I'm speaking here about, those costs can run from hundreds to thousands of dollars. So, this requires let's say, a significant cash outlay. And but when you think about a food truck, is it a good investment? Yes. I mean, when you think about it, a food truck can be a good investment, but this depends on a variety of factors, such as local competition. So, going back to the geography, the county, the city you are in. You also have to think about the foot traffic. In other words, the demographics in the area. You also have to think about permitting fees, so the permits, and the cost of the food that you plan on serving. Right? I mean, the last few years, food costs have food prices have gone up like crazy, especially during COVID. It was just really crazy. So things to think. Those are things you should think about. And food truck owners can make their businesses more profitable by buying gently used equipment and maintaining their trucks to avoid actually expensive repairs. And also buy seasoned foods, buy seasoned ingredients. Okay, and so what are the risks of opening a food truck? Because not everything is perfect in the food truck business, and you can have a risky operation. So there are several risks of opening and operating a food truck, such as collisions and food contamination, both of which insurance can help cover. There is also the risk of the business plan not working out, but there are ways to mitigate the effects of this. For example, you can rent a truck for a few months to actually test whether your concept works before actually going full time. So that's kind of cool. I mean, so overall, it's all about testing the waters, getting your feet wet before you actually scale. And if you have a workable solution, if you have a workable business model for your food truck business, then you can just scale real fast. So here's an epilogue to today's conversation. So I explained to you how to start a food truck business. I gave you the prologue, the cost. We spoke about a few bonus tips, and now the epilogue. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.